Welcome friends to the update March 2023. I'm a little bit late this time. I was traveling around, but now I can finally make an update of the fish tank. As you see, the first picture of the tank definitely unveils that I have a cyano problem in the sand bed. Or not really a problem, but it just definitely increases more and more and more. So I already took some measurements and I actually removed the pellets I have on top, or I had on top of this aquarium. I had a pellet feeder where I every day fed some pellets, and they usually definitely increase the nitrates quite a bit. I removed that, and it was probably a week ago. I didn't clean anything, just that you see the full mess of that cyano algae there in my sand bed. Also when I go here a little bit around the aquarium on that side, there's definitely everywhere a little bit cyano in the sand bed. I did add a little bit sand couple weeks ago, so I kind of anticipated that there's a little bit an outbreak of diatoms or stuff like this. But it kind of just ended up that I have a lot of that cyano in the sand bed. I still try to go the natural way. I don't really want to change anything drastically here, but you see it's definitely everywhere where the light gets all the way down. You see a lot of cyano. Also a little bit on the rock, on some pieces on the rock you see a little bit cyano. On the rock is the good thing. On the rock you can just go inside with a power head and kind of get it off the rock by just blowing a lot of water flow on the different rocks. So that's definitely an option. On the sand you cannot really do that, otherwise you would blow the sand all around your aquarium. Other than the cyano problem, I give a complete little update about the tank. The corals are doing really good. There's a lot of growth, and when you see here on top even my favorite little millipora, rainbow millipora, everything is actually doing great on that one as well as all the other corals. I don't actually think any of them are really struggling or something like this. Maybe the mushrooms here underneath, they were definitely a little bit more out a while ago, but yeah, nothing to worry about. What I did here already on the left side, maybe you remember from the last update, I put some red digitada and that green goblin anacropora there on top of the Montipora cap. So it makes a pretty nice island, and when you look here from that side, from the left side, that thing just kind of took everything over here. When I make a little shot here from below, you see it's just a massive structure. And now I definitely know where all my All-For-Reef powder went through, all the alkalinity. It definitely had to do with the fast grow of that coral there as well. I'm pretty happy also with the colors of the coral. As I said, I reduced a little bit the feeding the pellets. So now I measured this morning and I was actually at 3 ppm for nitrates, and again at almost 0.2 phosphate, not 0.02, 0.2, which is definitely a little bit on the higher side. But if you follow that tank, I had actually for over half a year long values in 0.4 and all kind of craziness, and it actually never really impacted my corals very bad, other than it definitely caused some growth, also some algae on the glass, and also algae on my wave makers. When we talk about wave makers, another update I did, when you see here I have on the left side as well as on the right side, I have these RedSea 45 power heads. They are running 100% strength, forth and back. on the random mode. So that means it could be anything between 1% and 100% all the time. So they just kind of make some massive currents over the reef there. And additionally, what I added is just to help a little bit with the CYANO problem are these narrow 3 power heads, which I had in the other tank. So I put them again back into that tank. I put them on the right side here and on the left side facing frontwards. So that one blows a lot of water through the tank, as well as that one here blows it really here all the way underneath that Montipora cap to the front. As you could think of, especially if that big structure here, with that big coral structure here on the left side. Since I only had the wave makers here on top, there's almost no flow really going down there. So that's why having now these wave makers there on the back definitely help a little bit, creating turbulence in the tank. But again, I was running the tank a long time just with these 2 wave makers. A lot of people actually in the comments always were astonished that I only run 2 Reefwave 45s on that tank, especially with that many corals. But it was working actually very well a long time. But now I have so many corals inside, I definitely need a little bit more flow, and that's why I added the 2 ones back. It probably wouldn't be my first choice of wave makers if I would buy them now again brand new and everything, but since I already had them, it was kind of a no-brainer to just kind of use those ones. Okay, let's go with a little overview for the corals itself. There on the top still, the ones I'm waiting for to grow, the little Acroporas there, that purple one and the red one, they are actually doing very well. They're also fairly encrusted over the rock there. Then the Bali Slimer, that one has really good polyp extension. As you maybe see here a little bit in the water flow, there's really a lot of movement going on the polyps. And I just definitely hope that grows a little bit more and maybe goes then at one point even further up to fill the tank out even more. So when you think the tank is a RedSea 425 XL tank, and it's actually pretty much filled already with a lot of especially Montipora corals. But that one, my goal is actually to completely fill that and have just kind of a very nicely filled tank with a lot of different colors inside. Then also some more Acroporas there in the middle. That one actually grew very much, the one in the front. It's probably also kind of a Millipora kind of coral. I just never really note down any of their names. So sorry for that, but maybe you have any kind of guess what that could be. Then if we go here a little bit to the left, still the Stylophora, which is doing great. I always had that all the way up on the rock. I put it down because it started shading so crazy much all the other corals that I became a little bit an issue. But now here it's actually blending in so nicely with that green Monty cap and the red digitata there. It's a great addition. And my little cleaner shrimp is constantly hanging out there. He definitely loves that coral as well. Then there's a little bit of mess going on here, a little bit of fight between the Montipora setosa, the red one, and then I also have that kind of blue Stylophora there in the back, green digitata, and another green Monty cap, and they are kind of completely grow over each other here. You see that one even comes here all the way from the back. But it's also a cool thing if all these corals kind of grow together and then create a unique little island I still call them islands. I have the left island and I have the right island right over there. Then the red TNT Anacropora from Jason Fox. That one is also growing very, very nicely. The only downside on that one is it's a little bit fragile to frag, so it's, as soon as you touch it, it kind of breaks apart. I'm usually not really a big fan of those kind of corals because when I clean my tank, I have to put my hands inside, and then just kind of all the stuff constantly breaking off makes a little bit of mess. Yeah. Then the Montipora here, I think it's called Cherry Tree Montipora. It's kind of a red Montipora with green polyps, so that's why it almost looks a little bit like a cherry. That one is also doing good. I have on the sand bed, as I probably mentioned before, around 150 to 200 pars since I let my 160S ReefLeds, I let them run. Now again I moved them a little bit back again to 80% blue and 90% white, so even on the sand bed there's absolutely no problem to grow corals here, as well as that Cyphastria here, the branching Cyphastria, and that gold coral, 24K Leptoceris. Yeah, Leptoceris is the name for that one. I almost forgot that name. But now, since I probably have that half a year or something like this, it definitely started to encrust a little bit. So all good on that side. My candy cane coral down here. That one is also big. Maybe at one point I start fragging in that one. But for now I just want to keep my fingers away from it since it's doing so good. I don't really want to force anything. It's really a downside with all that cyano here on the sand bed. You see I give you here a little bit a closer look. It's really everywhere a little bit, but I have to say since a week it definitely disappeared a little bit. It's also already afternoon when I shoot here that video, and in the afternoon obviously the more light it gets, the more red and the more increasing the amount on the sand bed you can see. Usually in the very morning hours, just right when the light comes on, you barely even see anything red on the sand bed. If that's the case, then you know you have the cyanobacteria, because they are photosynthetic and they kind of hide when there's no light in the tank. Then before we go to the right island, I have a big chunk there of green goblin Anacropora there in the back. And I had them in different kind of areas in the tank, but it was just kind of taking everything so much over, and then also got a little bit shaded because I had it here underneath. So that's why I put it there on the back, so that it gets a lot of light, and then also the color came nicely back. If you don't give it enough light, it just gets super pale, and then yeah, just because I make here and there a couple frags to give them away, and I rather have them in a nice little coloration than completely pale. Then on the right side here, one of my favorite corals still is that slime ball Anacropora here on the front. It's pretty much not the same, but similar to the green goblin there in the back. But when you look, the branches, just the thickness of these branches are just kind of way thicker. And it just kind of creates a nice coloration to the tank. And just the fact that it grows so quickly, yeah, like that very much. Then classic red digitada here. Also that one takes off like crazy. Absolutely no problem with that one. Followed by the purple Capricornis. Also that one, when you look, it definitely fills out the tank nicely. On the side here, that's Starburst Monty Capricornis. It's almost like a red Monty cap, but it has kind of golden brown polyps. So it looks just a little bit different. Also here I have a tiny little chunk still of the green Acropora. Then bird's nest. Yes, I figured it finally out. It's bird's nest. It's not German blue Montipora. Digitada and a Stylophora, a green one over here. But the thing I have to be cautious with, or the thing I have to soon frag a little bit more, is the Millipora here, because that one definitely starts shading me a lot of things in the tank. So I kind of have to figure out something then for that one. In the middle I still have my all kinds of Monty caps there who kind of graft a little bit together, and also another chunk of Stylophora coral. So it's pretty much a Montipora dominated system, and it just really looks nice. Yeah. I still sometimes would love to have something a little bit more flowy, because obviously if you all have like SPS coral, they are just very static, so they don't really move in the current or something like this. Maybe I was thinking about Gorgonians. I was reading you can have them also in some higher light environment, so maybe I do then that one as well. But that's a little update to my larger tank here. What I also obviously always a little bit maintain is my frag tank here. Maybe you also saw that before. It's still in my Max Nano. I have now that Kessil AP700 over it, so I get definitely good enough light, and I have all kinds of frags from my system inside here. If you're in my area and if you want to come and pick some up, you definitely are welcome to do that. So it's a nice little system. I cleaned that a couple weeks ago, and since I keep now the water very, very clean inside here, I also don't have really any kind of dirtiness or algae growth, or how you call that, in the tank here. So it's pretty stable for now. The only thing I still have is obviously the lack of coloration, since I don't really have a lot of fish inside. But the polyp extension, especially also on the acros, is actually really, really good here. The only thing that I have now, since I moved the Nero 3 power heads out of that tank, I don't really have a lot of flow, so I just have the stock pump inside there, and on the side that little CJ pump. I think it's a CJ Nano 0.5 or something like this. It's an ultra it's not a very strong pump, yeah, it's an ultra weak pump, but at least it gives a little bit water flow then as well. Yeah, that's my 2 tanks. What I also can show maybe quick, because I think his name was Xander, he asked me, and thank you for reaching out, about if I can show a little bit more about my gear. And it's not really something I'm ultra proud of, because I don't really have, you know, like on the internet you see always these nice little sumps and all that stuff. Mine is definitely not very nice to look at, but it's pretty effective. I can also guide you here quickly through. I have a Clarisea Gen 2 Filterroller. That one probably lasts 1 or 1.5 months, one roll. I have the bypass completely closed, so all the water goes through the roll to filter out the debris in the water. Then I have the RedSea Reefer Skimmer, the 600. I'm definitely interested whenever then these upgrade kits are available for the DC pump with the automatic water level measurement thing. I definitely probably do then that update. And just because I have the CO2 scrubber here, it's also pretty silent. So when I pull up here the line, you hear, that's actually otherwise, I mean, it still has a silencer, but it's otherwise pretty loud. But with that if the noise has to go through that whole box here with the CO2 media, it makes it actually super silent, which I like. I'm not a huge fan of a very loud reef tank. I think at the moment the loudest thing on my tank are actually the ReefLed 160. The fan in those lights is pretty loud, but they are also getting pretty hot, so that's actually quite okay. Then in the right compartment box here, the only thing I really have here inside is the Pentair UV sterilizer. I had in another tank an issue once with parasites on the fish, so now I just kind of always want that my fish are doing good, so that's why I put that pretty big UV sterilizer on it, so it helps with the parasites as well as with some algae growth. And I mean, since I have it now, I keep it inside. I change every year the bulb inside, so the UV bulb, you just have to make sure that you change that every year. Even the bulb obviously still works, you still want to kind of change that one. Then I obviously have a little bit of mess with the cables when you look at this, but this allows me to very easy remove the pumps and clean them. So if you put everything, zip tie it nice and tidy. The downside is it's a mess to remove them, or at least for me. It was always a little bit a downside to remove them, so I rather have it easy to remove, and then I also do the maintenance, then a very nice looking area underneath the tank. I rather have a nice tank than a nice cord thing. Okay, and then obviously the only thing I dose, as you guys probably now already know, is the All-For-Reef. So in that little container here, which I got from Amazon, there's kind of around 3 liters or 0.7 or something like this gallons space for my solution, and that usually runs my tank for like around 20 days. It's, I think at the moment, like 110 milliliters per day, which I dose on my system. So yeah, it's something over 20 days I run on that one. Then also, just in case you're interested, what I run here underneath the Max Nano. It's just a Tunzi auto top off, and I have one of these cheap Jabao dosers. It's actually a 4-head doser, but I only really use 1 head for the also for the All-For-Reef. I have that in one of the old bottles, because everybody who is familiar with All-For-Reef maybe remembers a year ago, or maybe it was even more, All-For-Reef usually was always coming in a liquid form in these bottles, and now you can finally buy it in a powder form and definitely save a lot of money. But that's the update. I know we're late, it's actually already April, but I still would count it as a March update. And if you want to double check what's the progress on my CYANO, definitely subscribe to the channel, that you get a notification when I load the next video, and then check in a month. Hopefully we got rid of that CYANO. That would be very nice. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, and we see us probably around in a month when the weather also gets way nicer. I can't wait for summer. I'm definitely a summer person, not a winter person. And happy reefing.